My husband proposed to his mistress with my credit card in front of 50,000 people on a live stream. I watched from my office as every single card got declined, one after another, while the comments exploded with laughter. What he didn't know was that I had been draining our accounts for weeks, and I was about to make sure the whole world knew exactly what kind of man Marcus Chen really was. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Diana Chen, and at 38 years old I thought I had built the perfect life. I was a senior financial analyst at Westbrook Capital in downtown Seattle, pulling in a comfortable six-figure salary. My husband Marcus ran a supposedly successful tech startup that developed mobile gaming apps. We lived in a beautiful craftsman house in Queen and took annual trips to Europe, and from the outside we looked like the couple that had it all figured out. The truth was so much uglier than anyone could have imagined. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March when my entire world shifted on its axis. I had taken a half day from work because I was feeling under the weather, nothing serious, just a persistent headache that wouldn't quit. I had texted Marcus to let him know I was coming home early, but he never responded. That should have been my first clue. I pulled into our driveway around 2 in the afternoon, noticing that Marcus's Tesla was parked in its usual spot. The house looked quiet, normal, exactly as I had left it that morning. I used my key to enter through the front door, juggling my work bag and a pharmacy bag with headache medication. The first thing I noticed was music playing upstairs. Not loud but distinct. Some kind of pop music that Marcus never usually listened to. He was more of a classic rock guy, always had been. The second thing I noticed was a woman's laugh, bright and carefree, echoing down from our bedroom. My stomach dropped like I had just stepped off a cliff. Every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong, but I forced myself to stay calm, to move quietly. I set my bags down in the entryway, slipped off my heels so I wouldn't make noise on the hardwood floors, and crept toward the staircase. As I climbed the stairs, the sounds became clearer. The music was coming from our bedroom, and there were definitely two voices up there. Marcus's low rumble and that woman's higher-pitched tone, speaking in a way that was far too intimate, far too comfortable. I reached the landing and moved down the hallway toward our partially open bedroom door. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my fingertips, in every nerve ending. Through the crack in the door I could see movement, shadows, and then I heard her voice clearly for the first time. "Baby, you're so good to me. I can't believe how lucky I am." Baby. She had called my husband baby. I pushed the door open wider, and the scene that greeted me was like something out of a nightmare. Marcus was lying on our bed where we had slept together for 8 years, and draped across his chest was a woman I had never seen before. She looked young, maybe 25, with long dark hair and the kind of effortless beauty that came from youth rather than effort. They were fully clothed, thank God, but the intimacy of their position, the way she was playing with his hair, the way he was looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world, it told me everything I needed to know. I must have made a sound, a gasp or a sharp intake of breath, because they both turned toward the doorway at the same moment. The woman's eyes went wide with shock. Marcus's face drained of all color, going from relaxed and happy to absolutely terrified in the span of a heartbeat. "Diana." His voice came out strangled, broken. "You're supposed to be at work." Clearly. I was amazed at how steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was screaming. "Who is she?" The woman scrambled off the bed, smoothing down her clothes, her face flushed with embarrassment or excitement. I couldn't tell which. "I'm Jade. I'm sorry, I didn't know he was still married." Still married. As if our marriage was some temporary condition that was about to expire. "Get out of my house." I said it quietly, but there must have been something in my tone that scared her because Jade grabbed her purse and practically ran past me, her footsteps thundering down the stairs. The front door slammed a moment later. Marcus sat up slowly, running his hands through his hair in that way he always did when he was stressed. "Diana, I can explain." "Can you?" I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly exhausted. "Can you really explain why there was another woman in our bed? Can you explain why she called you baby? Can you explain why she thought you weren't married anymore?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping for air. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Marcus? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having an affair." I wouldn't call it an affair exactly. He stood up, taking a tentative step toward me. It's more like we've just been talking, getting to know each other. Nothing physical has happened. I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. Nothing physical. You were lying in our bed with her draped all over you. Don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else. Diana, please. Just let me explain. Jade is going through a tough time and I've been helping her out. That's all. We met at a coffee shop a few months ago and we just connected. As friends. Friends. The word hung in the air between us like poison. Friends don't lie in bed together. Friends don't call each other baby. Friends don't make other friends' wives feel like complete fools. I turned and walked away, then down the stairs, grabbing my bags from the entryway. Marcus followed me, his voice rising with desperation. Where are you going? We need to talk about this. I'm going to a hotel. I need space to think. Don't call me, don't text me, don't try to explain this away. I'll contact you when I'm ready. I drove to the Fairmont Olympic Hotel downtown, checked into a suite, and spent the rest of the afternoon crying until I had no tears left. When evening came, I ordered room service and opened my laptop, not to work, but to do something I should have done a long time ago. I logged into our bank accounts. What I found made my blood run cold. Marcus and I had always kept our finances mostly separate, each contributing to a joint account for household expenses while maintaining our own personal accounts. It had seemed like a modern, trusting arrangement. Now I realized it had been a mistake. The joint account looked normal, but when I dug deeper into Marcus's personal business accounts, using passwords I had memorized years ago when he had asked me to help him with some paperwork, I found a pattern of transactions that told a disturbing story. Regular transfers to someone named Jade Flores. Hundreds of dollars at a time, sometimes more. Charges at expensive restaurants I had never been to. Hotel rooms booked in the city even though we lived here. Shopping sprees at high-end boutiques. Over the past 6 months, Marcus had spent nearly $80,000 on this woman. $80,000 while I had been carefully budgeting our household expenses, while I had been suggesting we save more for retirement, while I had been clipping coupons and looking for deals. He had been hemorrhaging money on his mistress. But what really caught my attention was a recent series of transactions that painted an even darker picture. Marcus had been researching engagement rings. Expensive ones. He had visited multiple jewelry stores, both in person based on the credit card locations and online based on his browsing history that synced to our shared cloud storage. My husband was planning to propose to his mistress. While still married to me, I spent the next 3 days in that hotel room, calling in sick to work, ordering room service, and doing the most thorough financial investigation of my life. What I discovered was worse than I could have imagined. Marcus's supposedly successful tech startup was actually hemorrhaging money. The company had burned through its venture capital funding and was now operating on fumes and Marcus's personal credit. He had maxed out 3 credit cards I didn't know existed. He had taken out a loan against our house without my knowledge, forging my signature on the documents. He had even borrowed money from his parents, telling them it was for a business emergency. And all of this financial chaos, all of this debt and desperation, had happened while he was spending money like water on Jade Flores. On the 4th day, I received a text from an unknown number. Hi Diana, this is Jade. I know you probably hate me, but I really think we should talk. Marcus has been lying to both of us. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. What do you mean? Her reply came quickly. He told me you were separated, that the divorce was almost final. He said you were the one who had an affair and that's why things ended. I didn't know any of this was a lie until you showed up at the house. A cold rage settled over me, replacing the grief and shock I had been feeling. Marcus hadn't just betrayed me with another woman. He had created an entire fictional narrative where I was the villain, where he was the victim, where his affair was somehow justified. Can we meet? I typed back. There are things you need to know about the man you're involved with. We met at a quiet coffee shop in Capitol Hill the next morning. Jade looked different in daylight, younger somehow, and deeply uncomfortable. She had dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't been sleeping well. I'm so sorry, she said as soon as I sat down. I would never have gotten involved with a married man if I had known. Marcus showed me pictures on his phone of him living in an apartment by himself. He said you kicked him out 6 months ago. We live together. We've been living together the entire time he's known you. I pulled out my phone and showed her photos from our shared cloud storage. Pictures of Marcus and me at Christmas, at New Year's, at a friend's wedding in February. He's been lying to you from the beginning. Jade's hands were shaking as she scrolled through the photos. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. You're a victim of a very good liar. I paused, then decided to be direct. How much money has he spent on you? She looked up sharply, her face flushing red. I don't know. He's been very generous. He says he wants to take care of me because I'm struggling with student loans. $80,000 in 6 months. That's how generous he's been. With money from our joint assets and credit cards, he's maxed out. He's also planning to propose to you.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
He's been looking at rings that cost more than most people make in a year. Jade's face went pale. He can't afford that. He told me his business was struggling. He said that's why he couldn't help me with my loans anymore. His business is failing. He's hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. He forged my signature to take out a loan against our house. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Jade, I need to ask you something important. Has Marcus mentioned anything about me having money? About my job or my salary? She nodded slowly. He said you were rich. That you came from family money and had a trust fund. He said that's why you were so controlling about finances, because you wanted to keep everything for yourself. And there it was. The final piece of the puzzle. Marcus wasn't just having an affair. He was planning to leave me for Jade. But first he needed to bleed our assets dry, saddle me with as much debt as possible, and position himself as the wronged party who deserved everything in the divorce. I don't have a trust fund, I said quietly. I have a good job that I've worked hard for. Every penny we have, I've earned or saved carefully. And Marcus has been systematically stealing it to impress you, while running his failed business into the ground. Jade started crying then, quiet tears that rolled down her cheeks. I feel like such an idiot. He was so convincing. He made me feel special, like I was the only person who understood him. He's a con artist. A really good one. The question is, what are we going to do about it? She looked up at me, confusion and hope mixing in her expression. Marcus has stolen from me, lied to both of us, and committed fraud. I'm not just going to walk away from this. I'm going to make sure he faces consequences. I pulled out a folder I had been carrying. But I need your help. Over the next hour, I laid out everything I had discovered. The financial fraud, the forged documents, the maxed out credit cards, the pattern of deception. Jade listened with growing horror, occasionally asking questions, sometimes covering her mouth in shock. What do you want me to do? She asked finally. I want you to keep seeing him. Act like nothing has changed. Let him continue with whatever plan he has. And I want you to document everything. Every lie he tells you, every promise he makes, every detail about his proposal plans. You want me to be a spy. I want you to help me catch a criminal. Because that's what he is, Jade. He's not just a cheating husband. He's a fraud and a thief. She was quiet for a long moment, thinking it through. Then she nodded. Okay, I'll do it. But I have one condition. What's that? When this is over, when he's caught and facing whatever consequences, I want you to know that I'm sorry. Really truly sorry. I may have been lied to, but I still played a part in hurting you. I appreciated her words, even though they didn't erase the pain. Deal. Over the next 2 weeks, Jade fed me information like she was my own personal intelligence agent. Marcus had indeed been planning to propose, and he had an elaborate scheme in mind. He was going to propose during a live stream on a social media platform where Jade had built up a following as a lifestyle influencer. She had over 200,000 followers who tuned in regularly to watch her share beauty tips, fashion advice, and glimpses of her daily life. Marcus thought this would be the perfect way to propose. Public, memorable, guaranteed to go viral. He had it all planned out. He would surprise her during one of her regular evening streams, get down on one knee with a ring that cost $45,000, and become an internet sensation as the romantic hero who swept his girlfriend off her feet. What Marcus didn't know was that I had been implementing my own plan. For the past 2 weeks, I had been systematically freezing our joint accounts, canceling credit cards, and securing every financial asset I could legally touch. I had consulted with a lawyer who specialized in fraud cases and a divorce attorney who had seen cases like mine before. I had documented everything, built a case that was ironclad. And then I had done something that felt deliciously vindictive. I had made sure that when Marcus went to pay for that $45,000 engagement ring, his credit cards would decline. Every single one of them. The night of the proposal, I was sitting in my office at home, laptop open, watching Jade's live stream along with approximately 50,000 other viewers. The number kept climbing as word spread that something interesting was about to happen. Jade had been teasing a special surprise for days, building anticipation. She looked beautiful on camera, wearing a simple white dress that made her look innocent and ethereal. She was in her apartment, a cozy space decorated in soft neutrals, talking to her audience about upcoming content when there was a knock at her door. "Oh, I wonder who that could be," she said to the camera, her acting just believable enough. "Should I answer it?" The comments section exploded with curiosity and encouragement. Jade walked to the door and opened it, and there was Marcus, holding an enormous bouquet of roses, wearing his best suit, looking nervous and excited. "Marcus!" Jade's surprise seemed genuine enough. "What are you doing here?" "Jade, can I come in? There's something I need to ask you." The camera followed them as they moved back into the living room. The viewer count was now up to 70,000 people, all watching in real time as my husband prepared to propose to his mistress. Marcus got down on one knee, and I could see his hands shaking as he pulled out a ring box. "Jade Flores, from the moment I met you, my life changed completely. You're beautiful, kind, funny, and you make me want to be a better man. I know we haven't known each other that long, but sometimes you just know when something is right. Will you marry me?" He opened the ring box, and even through the camera, I could see the flash of diamonds. The comments section was going absolutely insane with crying emojis and congratulations. 75,000 people were watching now. Jade covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, I wondered if she was going to go off script, if the romance of the moment was going to override our plan. But then she spoke and her voice was perfect. "Yes. Yes, Marcus, I'll marry you." Marcus stood up, sliding the ring onto her finger, kissing her while the internet watched and cheered. It was a perfect moment, a fairy tale proposal that people would share and discuss for days. And then Marcus's phone rang. He tried to ignore it, but it kept ringing, insistent and shrill. Finally, he pulled it out of his pocket, frowning. "I'm sorry, I need to take this real quick." He stepped partially off camera, and I could see Jade positioning herself so the phone would still be audible to the stream's microphone. Marcus's face changed as he listened to whoever was on the other end, going from annoyed to confused to absolutely panicked. "What do you mean the card declined? Try the other one." "No, the platinum one." "What? That's impossible." The comments section started filling with confused questions. What was happening? Was something wrong? Marcus came back into frame, his face pale and sweating. "Jade, there's been a mistake at the jeweler. Can you take the ring off for just a second? I need to sort something out." "On camera?" Jade's voice was perfect, confused and hurt. "Marcus, what's going on?" "It's nothing, just a mix-up with the payment. The card I used must have had a security hold or something. I just need to call them back and fix it." But his phone was ringing again, and this time it was clearly the jeweler. Marcus answered, and his entire body language changed. He was arguing now, his voice rising. "I don't understand. I authorized that charge. Yes, I understand it's $45,000, but the card has a higher limit than that." 90,000 people were watching now. The comments were no longer congratulatory. They were starting to ask questions, make jokes, sense that something was very wrong with this picture. "Try another card?" Marcus was practically shouting now. "Fine, yes, I have another card. Hold on." He rattled off a different credit card number from memory, and I watched his face as he waited for the authorization. When it came back declined, he looked like he might throw up. "That's impossible. Try this one." Another card number. Another decline. The comments section was erupting with laughter, with speculation, with people recording clips to share on other platforms. This proposal was going viral, but not in the way Marcus had imagined. "Marcus, what's happening?" Jade asked, and her confusion was no longer acting. "Is everything okay? I don't understand. All my cards are being declined. Every single one." Someone in the comments posted a laughing emoji followed by "Bro is broke." Another person wrote, "This is the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen." The clip was already being shared across platforms. 100,000 people were watching now. Marcus tried 3 more cards, each one declining, his face getting redder and his voice getting more desperate. The jeweler was apparently threatening to come pick up the ring if payment couldn't be secured immediately. Marcus was arguing that he had already proposed, that the ring was already on Jade's finger, that there had to be a way to work this out. And then, in a moment I will treasure forever, someone in the comments posted a link. A link to a news article that I had made sure went live at exactly this moment. The headline read, "Local tech CEO under investigation for financial fraud and identity theft." The article detailed everything. Marcus's failing business, the forged loan documents, the stolen funds from joint accounts. It named me as the victim and primary source. It explained that all of Marcus Chen's accounts had been frozen pending investigation. The comments section exploded. People were screenshotting the article, sharing it, tagging Marcus's business accounts, tagging every social media profile he had. Within minutes, Marcus's professional life was being destroyed in real time by 100,000 witnesses. "Marcus." Jade's voice cut through his panic. "People are posting articles about you. They're saying you committed fraud. They're saying you stole from your wife." He spun to look at her, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. "My wife? What are you talking about? I told you we were divorced. You told me you were separated, going through a divorce. But these articles say you're still married, that you're still living together, that you stole from her to spend money on me. That's not, it's more complicated than that." The viewer count hit 150,000. This was no longer just a proposal gone wrong. This was a public execution. A man's life imploding in real time for the entertainment of the internet. "Take the ring off," Marcus said suddenly, desperately. "Jade, please just take the ring off. I need to return it. I need to fix this." But Jade just stared at him, and I could see the moment everything clicked into place for her. All the lies, all the manipulation, all of it crystallizing into perfect clarity. "You used me. You were going to leave your wife for me, but you were stealing her money to do it." "No, that's not, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." She looked directly at the camera, speaking to the massive audience. "This man, Marcus Chen, is a liar and a thief. He told me he was divorced. He spent tens of thousands of dollars on me that he stole from his wife. He was planning to trap me in a marriage while he was drowning in debt and fraud charges." 200,000 people were watching now. The stream had gone so viral that it was trending on multiple platforms. Marcus's name was trending. His business's name was trending. Screenshots and clips were everywhere. "You set me up." Marcus turned on Jade, his panic turning to rage. "You knew about this. You were working with her." "Yes." Jade's voice was steady, strong. "I was working with your wife. Because you lied to both of us, and we decided you should face the consequences on the biggest stage possible." Marcus lunged toward the camera, trying to shut off the stream, but Jade blocked him. They struggled for a moment, both of them shouting, and then there was a knock at the door. Loud, official, unmistakable. "Seattle Police Department. Open the door." Marcus froze. The color drained from his face completely. Through the camera, I watched as Jade opened the door and 2 police officers entered the apartment. They had a warrant for Marcus's arrest on charges of fraud, identity theft, and forgery. They read him his rights while 250,000 people watched and recorded and shared. As they led Marcus away in handcuffs, Jade looked directly into the camera one more time. "Let this be a lesson. Lying men eventually get caught. And sometimes, the women they underestimate are the ones who make sure the whole world is watching when they fall." The stream ended. The internet exploded. Within an hour, Marcus Chen was the #1 trending topic across all major social media platforms. The proposal video had been viewed millions of times. News outlets were picking up the story. His business partners were issuing statements distancing themselves from him. His investors were lawyering up. Everything he had built, every lie he had told, every manipulation he had perfected, it all came crashing down in one spectacular public display. I closed my laptop and sat in the quiet of my office, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not joy exactly, but satisfaction. The kind of deep bone-level satisfaction that comes from seeing justice served perfectly. My phone rang. It was my divorce attorney. "Diana, are you watching the news?" "I orchestrated the news." She laughed, long and genuine. "Well, you certainly made my job easier. With this level of public documentation and his arrest on fraud charges, we can fast-track this divorce and make sure you're protected from any of his debts. He's not going to have a leg to stand on." Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications. Hundreds of them. My social media accounts, which I rarely used, had exploded overnight with friend requests, messages, and tags. People I hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out. Former colleagues, old classmates, distant relatives. Everyone wanted to know if I was the Diana Chen from the viral proposal video. I ignored most of them and focused on what mattered. I had a meeting scheduled with my divorce attorney at 9, and then another meeting with a detective handling Marcus's fraud case. The wheels of justice were turning faster than I could have hoped, propelled by the very public nature of his humiliation. My attorney, Caroline Park, met me at her downtown office with a stack of documents and a satisfied smile. She was a woman in her 50s who had built her career on protecting wronged spouses from financial devastation. When I had first contacted her 3 weeks ago, she had told me that cases like mine were her favorite because they combined legal strategy with righteous anger. "You've become something of a celebrity overnight," Caroline said as she poured us both coffee. "My paralegal showed me at least 15 different news articles about the proposal this morning. CNN is calling it the most dramatic public breakup since that quarterback got dumped on live television." "I didn't plan for it to go quite this viral," I admitted. "I just wanted Marcus to experience public humiliation proportional to the private humiliation he put me through." Well, mission accomplished. But let's talk about the practical implications. Marcus was arrested last night on fraud charges. He's currently being held on $50,000 bail, which he obviously cannot pay because all his accounts are frozen. His parents are apparently scrambling to help him, but from what I understand, he's already borrowed heavily from them under false pretenses. I felt a small pang of sympathy for Marcus's parents. They were good people who had always treated me kindly. His father Richard was a retired accountant, and his mother Susan was a former teacher. They had raised Marcus to be better than this, and his choices must have been devastating for them. "Have they tried to contact me?" I asked. "Susan called my office yesterday evening. She's asked if she can meet with you." I advised her that any communication should go through me, but she was quite insistent that she speak with you personally. I thought about that for a moment. Part of me wanted nothing to do with anyone connected to Marcus. But another part of me remembered holiday dinners with Susan, remembered how she had welcomed me into their family, remembered the kindness she had shown me when my own mother passed away 5 years ago. "Tell her I'll meet with her. But somewhere public and you need to be present." Caroline nodded approvingly. "Smart. I'll set something up for tomorrow. Now let's talk about the divorce proceedings. With Marcus's arrest and the overwhelming evidence of financial fraud, we can file for an expedited divorce based on fraud and infidelity. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, but the fraud aspect gives us significant leverage in asset division." "I want everything," I said flatly. "The house, my retirement accounts that he tried to raid, compensation for the $80,000 he spent on Jade, everything. He can keep his failing business and his debts. That's more than fair, and given the circumstances, I believe we can make it happen." The judge assigned to your case is Judge Patricia Morrison. She's known for being particularly unsympathetic to spouses who commit financial fraud. I've worked with her before. We spent the next 2 hours going through every detail of my financial situation. Caroline had brought in a forensic accountant who had been reviewing the documents I provided. The accountant, a meticulous man named David Song, had uncovered even more financial misconduct than I had initially discovered. "Mrs. Chen, your husband was running what essentially amounts to a Ponzi scheme with his business," David explained, showing me spreadsheets and financial records. He was using investor money to fund his personal expenses, then using personal credit to fake business growth, which he would show to new investors to get more funding. It's a classic pattern of fraud. How much debt are we talking about? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Conservatively, about $400,000. That includes max credit cards, the fraudulent loan against your house, money borrowed from family and friends, and unpaid business debts. The actual number could be higher once we finish investigating. I felt dizzy. $400,000. Even with my good salary, that amount of debt would have taken years to pay off. If Marcus had succeeded in his plan, if he had managed to divorce me and stick me with half of that debt while running off with Jade, it would have destroyed my financial future. The good news, Caroline interjected, is that because you can prove the debt was incurred through fraud and without your knowledge or consent, we can argue that you bear no responsibility for it. Marcus will be solely liable. We're also filing a claim against him for the $80,000 he spent on Jade, plus legal fees, plus compensation for emotional distress. Will I actually see any of that money? I asked skeptically. Probably not in the short term. Marcus is essentially judgment-proof right now. He has no assets and massive debts. But we'll get a judgment on record, which means if he ever does rebuild his finances, you'll be first in line to collect. More importantly, it ensures that he can't claim any of your assets in the divorce. After the meeting with Caroline, I had lunch alone at a small cafe near Pike Place Market. I ordered a bowl of clam chowder and sat by the window, watching tourists take photos and street performers entertain crowds. Life was going on normally for everyone else while mine was being dissected and reorganized piece by piece. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Diana Chen? The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, who is this? My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm a producer for Morning Seattle. We'd love to have you on the show to tell your side of the story. The viral proposal video has generated enormous public interest, and our viewers are very curious about the woman behind the strategic takedown. I'm not interested in being on television, I said immediately. I understand your hesitation, but please hear me out. Right now, the narrative is being shaped by social media and secondhand accounts. This is your opportunity to control your own story, to explain your perspective directly. We would handle the interview with sensitivity and respect. You would have full approval over any clips used. I need to think about it. Of course. I'll email you my contact information. We would love to have you on the show this week while the story is still trending. But I understand if you need time to consider. After she hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to hide from all the attention, to handle this privately and move on with my life. But another part of me, the part that had orchestrated Marcus's very public downfall, understood the power of narrative. If I didn't tell my story, someone else would tell it for me, and they might get it wrong. That afternoon, I met with Detective Sarah Brennan, who was handling Marcus's criminal case. She was a woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. We met at a police precinct in downtown Seattle, in a small conference room that smelled like old coffee and anxiety. Mrs. Chen, I've reviewed all the evidence you provided, and I have to say, this is one of the most thoroughly documented fraud cases I've seen from a civilian. The recordings, the financial records, the timeline of events. You essentially did our job for us. I'm a financial analyst. Documentation is what I do. She smiled. Well, you're very good at it. Marcus Chen is being charged with multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, forgery, and theft. The evidence is overwhelming. His attorney is already talking about a plea deal. What kind of deal? Probably something in the range of 3 to 5 years in prison with restitution requirements. He'll have to pay back what he stole, though realistically, that will probably take him the rest of his life given his current financial situation. And Jade? She's not being charged with anything, is she? No. Based on the evidence you provided, including your recorded conversations with her, it's clear she was a victim of his deception as well. She cooperated fully with the investigation once she learned the truth. In fact, her testimony and the live stream evidence will be crucial to our case. I nodded, feeling relieved. Whatever anger I had initially felt toward Jade had faded once I understood she had been manipulated just as thoroughly as I had been. just in different ways. There is one thing I need to ask you about, Detective Brennan continued, her tone becoming more serious. The timing of the live stream and the article publication. The way everything was coordinated to maximize Marcus's public humiliation. Some might argue that you were vindictive rather than simply seeking justice. I was both, I said honestly. He humiliated me privately for months. He stole from me. He planned to destroy my financial future. Yes, I wanted justice, but I also wanted him to feel a fraction of the shame and embarrassment he made me feel. Is that vindictive? Maybe. But it's also fair. Detective Brennan studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I'm not judging you, Mrs. Chen. Between you and me, I've seen a lot of fraud cases, and the perpetrators usually get away with a slap on the wrist because the evidence isn't solid enough or the victims are too intimidated to follow through. What you did takes courage and strategic thinking. The public nature of his arrest actually helps our case because it's generated witnesses and additional evidence we wouldn't have had otherwise. What do you mean? After the proposal video went viral, we received tips from multiple people. Other women Marcus had been involved with. Business associates who had suspicions about his financial practices. Even some of his investors who were starting to ask questions but hadn't reported anything yet. Your very public takedown gave them permission to come forward. We're building a much stronger case than we would have had otherwise. That information sat heavy in my chest. Other women. Of course there had been other women. Jade probably wasn't even the first, just the one who happened to be around when everything fell apart. How many other women? I asked quietly. At least 3 that we know of. All of them thought they were his only girlfriend. All of them believed his stories about a failed marriage and a vindictive ex-wife. He was running the same con on multiple people simultaneously. I felt sick. Not just because of the betrayal, but because of how thoroughly I had been deceived. I had thought I knew Marcus. We had been together for 10 years, married for 8. How had I missed the signs that he was capable of this level of deception? Mrs. Chen, I know this is difficult, but I need to ask. Looking back, were there signs? Things that didn't add up but you dismissed? I thought about that question carefully. There were things. Times when he was vague about where he had been. Expenses that seemed higher than they should be. But he always had explanations and I trusted him. I believed that marriage meant giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. Trust is a weapon in the wrong hands, Detective Brennan said softly. People like Marcus Chen are experts at exploiting that trust. You're not foolish for believing someone you loved. He's criminal for betraying that belief. After leaving the police station, I drove to my office at Westbrook Capital. I had been out for almost a week using sick days and personal time, but I couldn't hide forever. My boss, Patricia Chen, no relation despite the shared last name, had been understanding when I called to explain the situation. She had actually seen the viral video before I even contacted her. Diana, take all the time you need, she had said. But when you're ready to come back, your job is waiting for you. And just so you know, everyone here is on your side. Walking into the office felt strange. I had spent 5 years building my career here, establishing myself as a reliable and skilled analyst. Now I was the woman from the viral video, the scorned wife who had orchestrated an elaborate revenge plot. I wasn't sure how my colleagues would react. The answer came as soon as I stepped off the elevator. The entire department, about 20 people, started applauding. Slow at first, then building to genuine enthusiasm. My cubicle was decorated with supportive messages and flowers. Someone had even made a banner that read, "Welcome back, legend." Patricia emerged from her office, smiling. I told you everyone was on your side. You've become something of an inspiration around here. Half the women in this office have texted their partners reminding them to treat them right. And the men are suddenly very interested in being transparent about their finances. I laughed despite myself. I didn't mean to become a cautionary tale. You're not a cautionary tale. You're a success story. You discovered fraud, documented it thoroughly, protected your assets, and made sure the perpetrator faced consequences. That's not revenge, Diana. That's justice served with efficiency. My colleague Jennifer approached with a cup of coffee, made exactly how I liked it. We've all been following the story. That live stream was legendary. The way his face went pale when the cards kept declining? Chef's kiss. I appreciate the support, but I'm ready to just focus on work now. Get back to normal. Normal might take a while, Patricia said. You've had media requests. Lots of them. News outlets, podcasts, even a documentary filmmaker. I've been screening your calls, but you should probably decide how you want to handle the attention. I thought about the producer from Morning Seattle, about Detective Brennan's comment that my public takedown had encouraged others to come forward, about the women who were now questioning their own relationships because of what they had witnessed. Set up a call with that Morning Seattle producer, I said. I think I'm ready to tell my story. The next day, I met Susan Chen at a quiet restaurant in Ballard. Caroline accompanied me, sitting at a nearby table but giving us space for privacy. Susan looked like she had aged 10 years in the past week. Her usual neat appearance was disheveled, her eyes red from crying. Diana, thank you for meeting with me, she said as soon as I sat down. I wasn't sure you would. You've always been kind to me, Susan. Whatever Marcus did, it's not your fault. She started crying then, quiet tears that she tried to wipe away discreetly. I keep asking myself where Richard and I went wrong. How did we raise a son who could do something like this? You didn't do anything wrong. Marcus made his own choices. I want you to know that we had no idea about any of this. The money he borrowed from us, he said it was for business emergencies. If we had known he was using it to fund an affair, to defraud you, we never would have given him a penny. I believe you. He's asking for us to post his bail. $50,000. Richard and I have been arguing about it for 2 days. Richard thinks we should help our son, but I keep thinking about what he did to you, to those other women. How can I help someone who hurt so many people? I reached across the table and took her hand. Susan, I can't tell you what to do about the bail. That's between you and Richard and your conscience. But I will tell you this. Marcus needs to face consequences for his actions. Real consequences that make him understand the severity of what he's done. If you shield him from that, you're not helping him. You're enabling him to continue being the person who could do this. The lawyer says he could go to prison for years. He committed crimes, Susan. Multiple serious crimes. Prison is where people go when they commit crimes. She nodded slowly, still crying. I know you're right. I just never imagined my son would be the kind of person who goes to prison. I keep thinking about him as a little boy, so sweet and loving. Where did that boy go? I don't know. Maybe he was never really there. Maybe we all just saw what we wanted to see. We talked for another hour. Susan told me about Marcus's childhood, trying to find clues to when things went wrong. She mentioned that he had always been charming, always good at getting what he wanted from people. Teachers, friends, family. Everyone loved Marcus because he knew how to make people feel special. He learned early that charm could get him out of consequences, Susan said. When he would get in trouble at school, he could talk his way out of it. When he made mistakes, he could make people forgive him. I thought it was just charisma. I didn't realize it was manipulation. By the time we parted ways, Susan had made her decision. She and Richard would not be posting Marcus's bail. He would stay in jail until his trial or until he accepted a plea deal. It was the hardest decision she had ever made, but she understood it was necessary. Thank you for meeting with me, Diana, she said as we stood to leave. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for what my son did to you. I'm sorry too, Susan. For all of us. That evening, I appeared on Morning Seattle. The interview was conducted by Melissa Park, a journalist known for her empathetic but thorough interviewing style. We sat in comfortable chairs on a set designed to look like a cozy living room, though the bright studio lights and multiple cameras made it clear this was anything but casual. Diana Chen, thank you for joining us, Melissa began. The video of your husband's proposal to his mistress has been viewed over 20 million times in the past 3 days. It's become a cultural phenomenon. How are you handling all the attention? It's been overwhelming, I admitted. I didn't set out to create a viral moment. I just wanted Marcus to face consequences for his actions in a way that was proportional to the harm he caused. Take us back to the beginning. When did you first suspect something was wrong? I walked her through the story. Coming home early and finding Jade in our bed. The initial shock and devastation. The decision to investigate rather than confront immediately. The discovery of the financial fraud. At what point did you decide to coordinate the public exposure? Melissa asked. When I realized Marcus wasn't just having an affair. He was systematically stealing from me, committing fraud, and planning to leave me buried in debt while he ran off with another woman. That's not just infidelity. That's financial abuse and criminal activity. I wanted him to face legal consequences, but I also wanted him to experience the public shame that matched the private shame he had put me through. Some people have criticized your approach as vindictive. They say you could have handled this privately. What do you say to that? I looked directly at the camera. Marcus had the option of handling this privately. He could have asked for a divorce honestly. He could have admitted he wasn't happy and wanted to leave. Instead, he chose to lie, steal, and plot. He chose to humiliate me in private while presenting a perfect public image. All I did was make his private behavior public. If he's embarrassed by people knowing what he did, maybe he shouldn't have done it in the first place. The interview went on for 30 minutes. Melissa asked about the other women Marcus had deceived, about the financial fraud, about my plans for the future. Throughout it all, I remained calm and factual, presenting my case not as an emotional victim but as a woman who had discovered a crime and taken appropriate action to stop it. Toward the end, Melissa asked a question that made me pause. Diana, do you still love him? Despite everything he's done? I thought about that carefully before answering. I loved the man I thought he was. But that man was a fiction. Marcus created a character, played a role, and I fell in love with the performance. The real Marcus, the one who could lie so easily, who could steal from someone who trusted him, who could manipulate multiple women simultaneously, I don't know that person. So no, I don't love him. I'm grieving the loss of someone who never really existed. After the interview aired, my phone exploded again. This time, the messages were different. Women reaching out to share their own stories of financial abuse. People thanking me for speaking out. Organizations that worked with fraud victims, asking if I would speak at events or contribute to awareness campaigns. One message stood out. It was from Jade. Thank you for the interview. You spoke for both of us and for everyone who's ever been deceived by someone they trusted. I'm moving back home to Portland to start over. I hope you find peace. I replied simply, I hope you find peace too. The following week moved quickly. Marcus's attorney approached Caroline with a plea deal. 3 years in prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution of the $80,000 he had spent on Jade, though the repayment schedule would likely extend for decades given his lack of assets. He would also be required to cooperate fully with the investigation into his business practices, which could result in additional charges from investors he had defrauded. He wants to take the deal, Caroline told me over the phone. His attorney advised him that if this goes to trial, especially given how public everything has become, he could face much harsher sentencing. The judge is not going to be sympathetic to someone who's been portrayed as the villain in a viral video watched by millions. Does he have to admit guilt? Yes. As part of the plea agreement, he has to allocate, which means standing before the judge and admitting exactly what he did. He has to say it out loud in open court. Good. I want him to say it. I want it on record. The court hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. I didn't have to attend, but I chose to be there. I wanted to look Marcus in the eye when he admitted what he had done. I wanted him to see that I had survived his betrayal and come out stronger. The courthouse was surprisingly busy that morning. The media attention had drawn reporters and curious onlookers, though cameras weren't allowed in the courtroom itself. I sat in the front row with Caroline, watching as Marcus was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He looked terrible. Thin, pale, defeated. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I saw something in his expression that might have been remorse or might have been self-pity. I couldn't tell, and I realized I didn't care. His feelings were no longer my responsibility. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, and everyone stood. She was a severe-looking woman in her 60s with steel gray hair, and an expression that suggested she had seen every form of human foolishness and been unimpressed by all of it. The prosecutor outlined the charges and the plea agreement. Then it was Marcus's turn to allocate. He stood, supported slightly by his attorney, and began to speak in a voice so quiet the judge had to ask him to repeat himself louder. I, Marcus Chen, admit that I committed fraud against my wife Diana Chen by forging her signature on loan documents without her knowledge or consent. I admit that I stole approximately $80,000 from joint accounts to spend on another woman. I admit that I deceived multiple women about my marital status and financial situation. I admit that I defrauded investors in my business by misrepresenting the company's financial health. I take full responsibility for my actions and accept the consequences. Judge Morrison looked at him with what could only be described as contempt. Mr. Chen, I've reviewed the evidence in this case extensively. The level of deception and manipulation you engaged in is truly remarkable. You betrayed your wife, your investors, your family, and multiple women who trusted you. The only reason you're receiving a relatively lenient sentence is because you've agreed to cooperate fully with ongoing investigations, and because your wife has chosen not to pursue maximum penalties. She turned to look at me. Mrs. Chen, is there anything you would like to say before I impose sentencing? I stood, my heart pounding. I hadn't prepared a statement, but words came anyway. Your Honor, I spent 10 years building a life with someone I thought I knew. I worked hard, saved carefully, and trusted completely. Marcus Chen didn't just steal my money. He stole years of my life, my sense of security, and my ability to trust. The financial damage can eventually be repaired. The emotional damage will take much longer. I hope that his time in prison gives him an opportunity to become the kind of person who would never do this to someone again. And I hope that this case serves as a warning to others who think they can use charm and manipulation to avoid consequences for their actions. Judge Morrison nodded. Well said, Mrs. Chen. Mr. Chen, I hereby sentence you to 3 years in state prison followed by 5 years of probation. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $80,000 to Diana Chen, with a payment schedule to be determined by the court. You will also be required to cooperate fully with ongoing investigations into your business practices. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Then we are adjourned. As Marcus was led away, he looked back at me one more time. His lips moved, and I could read the words even though I couldn't hear them. I'm sorry. I nodded once, acknowledging his apology without accepting it. Then I turned and walked out of the courtroom with my head held high, Caroline beside me, ready to begin the next chapter of my life. Outside the courthouse, a small group of reporters waited. I had agreed to make one brief statement, just to close this chapter publicly before moving on privately. My name is Diana Chen, and today justice was served. Marcus Chen will spend the next 3 years in prison for the crimes he committed. I hope this case demonstrates that financial abuse is real, that deception has consequences, and that victims have the power to fight back. I'm grateful to everyone who supported me through this process, and I'm looking forward to rebuilding my life on my own terms. Thank you. I didn't take questions. I simply walked to my car, drove home to my house that was now truly mine, and closed the door on the past. The next few months brought changes I hadn't anticipated. The divorce was finalized quickly, with me retaining the house, my retirement accounts, and clear separation from all of Marcus's debts. His failing business declared bankruptcy, and the investors filed their own lawsuits. I wasn't involved in any of that. My part of the story was over. Work became my refuge again. I threw myself into my job with renewed focus, finding satisfaction in the clean logic of numbers and financial analysis. Patricia promoted me to senior analyst, acknowledging both my skills and my newfound notoriety in a way that felt validating rather than exploitative. You've become a bit of a legend in financial circles, she told me during my promotion review. Several clients have specifically asked to work with you because they trust someone who understands the importance of financial security and accountability. I started speaking at events for women's financial literacy groups and organizations that worked with fraud victims, sharing my story not for sympathy, but as a case study in the importance of financial awareness and self-protection. The response was overwhelming. Women would approach me after speeches, sharing their own stories of financial abuse, asking for advice on how to protect themselves. One woman about my age grabbed my hand after an event in Tacoma. "You saved my marriage," she said through tears. "After I saw your story, I started paying attention to our finances. I discovered my husband had a secret credit card with $30,000 in debt. We're in counseling now working through it, but if I hadn't been paying attention because of what you went through, it could have destroyed us." Stories like that made everything worthwhile. The embarrassment, the public exposure, the painful divorce. If my experience helped even one person avoid the same fate, then it had meaning beyond my own personal justice. I also reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. Women I had known in college, former colleagues, people whose relationships I had let fade because Marcus had always wanted my attention focused on him and his needs. Building those friendships again felt like reclaiming parts of myself I had forgotten existed. 6 months after the viral proposal, I was having dinner with 3 friends at a restaurant in Capitol Hill when someone approached our table. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but are you Diana Chen?" I braced myself, unsure whether this would be congratulations or criticism. "Yes, I am. I just wanted to thank you. My boyfriend proposed to me last month, and before I said yes, I asked to see his financial records. He was shocked at first, but then he showed me everything. Turns out he had some debt he hadn't mentioned, nothing fraudulent, just student loans he was embarrassed about. We're working through it together now, but if I hadn't learned from your story to ask those questions before committing, I could have been blindsided later." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small card. "This is for you. It's silly, but I wanted to give you something." The card had a simple message inside. "Thank you for teaching me that love and financial transparency can coexist. You're a hero to women everywhere who refuse to be victims." After she left, my friend Jennifer raised her glass. "To Diana Chen, accidental feminist icon and destroyer of lying men everywhere." We all laughed and clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Not the nervous relief of having survived something terrible, but actual joy at being alive and free and surrounded by people who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide. That night, lying in bed in my quiet house with the windows open to let in the cool Seattle breeze, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the investigation, the viral moment, the legal battles, the rebuilding. It had been the most painful year of my life, but also the most transformative. I had learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could face betrayal and come out fighting rather than crumbling, that I could use intelligence and strategy to protect myself, that public humiliation, while painful, could be survived and even turned into something empowering. Most importantly, I had learned that I didn't need Marcus or anyone else to complete me. I was whole on my own, complete, capable, free. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won out. "Hi Diana, this is Jade. I know we haven't talked since everything happened, but I wanted you to know that I started therapy, and I'm working on understanding why I was vulnerable to Marcus's manipulation. My therapist suggested I might have some codependency issues from my childhood. It doesn't excuse what happened, but it helps me understand it. I'm also taking a financial literacy class at Portland Community College. I never want to be financially dependent on a man again. Thank you for showing me that women can be their own heroes. I hope you're doing well." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Jade, I'm proud of you for doing that work. It takes courage to look at yourself honestly and make changes. I'm doing well. For the first time in a long time, I'm truly doing well. I hope you find the peace and independence you deserve." Her response came quickly. "Thank you. That means more than you know." I set my phone aside and closed my eyes, feeling something settle in my chest. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of acceptance. What Marcus had done to me was terrible, but it had also freed me. Freed me from a relationship built on lies. Freed me from the burden of trying to make someone else happy at my own expense. Freed me to discover who I was when I wasn't performing the role of devoted wife. The viral proposal, as humiliating as it had seemed in the moment, had given me back my life. And for that, I would always be grateful. A year after the viral proposal, I stood in front of a conference room filled with 200 women at a financial empowerment summit in Portland. The organizers had asked me to be the keynote speaker, and I had spent weeks preparing my presentation on recognizing financial abuse and protecting your assets. As I looked out at the audience, I saw faces of all ages. Young women just starting their careers, middle-aged women rebuilding after divorce, older women who had spent decades letting someone else handle the money. Each one carried their own story, their own fears, their own determination to take control of their financial futures. My husband proposed to another woman with my credit card. I began, and the room went silent. 50,000 people watched his cards get declined on a live stream. That moment went viral, and I became known as the woman who destroyed her cheating husband's proposal. But that's not really what happened. What really happened is that I discovered systematic fraud, documented it carefully, and made sure the perpetrator faced consequences. The viral moment was just the delivery system for justice. I walked them through my story, not dwelling on the emotional aspects but focusing on the practical steps I had taken. How I had discovered the affair. How I had investigated the finances. How I had built a legal case while appearing to do nothing. How I had turned his moment of triumph into his moment of reckoning. The question I get asked most often is whether I regret the public nature of his exposure, I continued. The answer is no. Privacy protects abusers. Silence enables fraud. By making his actions public, I not only ensured he faced consequences, but I also gave other women permission to investigate their own situations. In the year since that proposal went viral, I've received thousands of messages from women who discovered financial abuse in their own relationships because my story made them pay attention. After the presentation, the line of women waiting to talk to me stretched across the room. One by one they shared their stories. A woman whose husband had secretly remortgaged their house. Another whose partner had stolen her inheritance. A young professional who discovered her boyfriend had opened credit cards in her name. Each story was different in details but similar in pattern. Trust exploited. Money stolen. Lives damaged by people who were supposed to love them. What do I do? They would ask. How do I protect myself? And I would tell them. Document everything. Secure your accounts. Consult professionals. Build your case. Don't confront until you're ready. Don't let shame keep you silent. Your financial security is not something you sacrifice for someone else's comfort. That evening I had dinner with Jade. We had maintained sporadic contact over the past year, checking in occasionally but giving each other space to heal and rebuild. She looked different now. Stronger. More confident. She had cut her hair short and was wearing minimal makeup, a far cry from the polished influencer image she had cultivated during her time with Marcus. I closed all my social media accounts, she told me over pasta and wine. I couldn't handle being known as the mistress from that viral video. Every comment, every message, it was either people calling me names or people praising me for helping expose Marcus. Both felt wrong. I just wanted to be anonymous again. I understand that impulse, I said. Sometimes I wish I could go back to being invisible too. But you're doing good work now. Those speaking engagements, the advocacy for fraud victims. You turned something horrible into something meaningful. So did you. You're finishing your degree, working a real job, building a life based on honesty instead of performance. That's meaningful too. She smiled and it was genuine. I'm dating someone new. A teacher. He makes a modest salary, drives a 10-year-old car, and splits every check exactly down the middle. It's the healthiest relationship I've ever had, because it's based on reality instead of fantasy. That's wonderful, Jade. You deserve real happiness. So do you. Are you seeing anyone? I shook my head. Not yet. I'm still working on trusting my own judgment again. Marcus fooled me completely for years. How do I trust myself to see clearly now? Maybe you don't have to see clearly right away. Maybe you just have to see honestly. You were looking for the best in Marcus, wanting to believe he was the person he pretended to be. Now you know to look for consistency between words and actions. That's not pessimism. It's wisdom. Her words stayed with me long after dinner ended. Wisdom earned through pain was still wisdom. The scars Marcus left had made me more cautious, yes, but they had also made me stronger and smarter. 6 months later, I met David at a financial literacy workshop where we were both volunteering. He was a tax attorney who specialized in helping small business owners navigate complex regulations. He had kind eyes, a self-deprecating sense of humor, and most importantly, he was comfortable with the fact that I was more financially successful than he was. I saw your viral moment, he admitted on our third date. Everyone did. But what impressed me wasn't the public takedown. It was that interview you did afterward where you explained the systematic fraud. You approached a deeply emotional situation with logic and strategy. That takes remarkable strength. It also makes me pretty intimidating to date, I said. Most men hear my story and either want to save me from my trauma, Or they're terrified I'll investigate them next. He laughed. I'm not intimidated. I'm intrigued. You're someone who fights for herself, who doesn't accept being a victim. That's attractive, not scary. And as for investigating me, go ahead. My finances are boring. Student loans, a modest retirement account, and a savings account that I actually know the balance of at any given moment. We took things slowly. I made him show me his financial records after 2 months of dating, and he did so without hesitation. We discussed prenuptial agreements before we even talked about marriage. We went to couples financial counseling to make sure we were aligned on money values and goals. A year into our relationship, David proposed. Not on a live stream. Not with a ring that costs more than a car. Just the two of us on a quiet beach at sunset, with a simple question and a modest ring we had picked out together after discussing our budget. Diana, I love you for who you are right now. Not who I imagine you could be or who I want to change you into. I want to build a life with you based on honesty, respect, and partnership. Will you marry me? I said yes. Not because I needed someone to complete me, but because I had found someone who complemented the whole person I had become. The wedding was small. Close friends and family only. Susan and Richard Chen were not invited, though Susan sent a card wishing me happiness. Marcus was still in prison with another year left on his sentence. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was working in the prison library, supposedly using his time to reflect and change. I hoped that was true. Not for my sake but for his. Everyone deserved the chance to become better than their worst actions, even if they could never undo the harm they had caused. On my wedding day, as I stood in front of our gathered loved ones, I thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. The betrayal that had shattered my old life. The investigation that had empowered me. The viral moment that had made me visible. The rebuilding that had made me whole. I used to think my story was about revenge, I said during my vows. But it's actually about reclamation. Reclaiming my power, my security, my right to build a life on my own terms. David, you're not rescuing me from anything. You're joining me in creating something new. Something honest. Something real. As we kissed and our friends applauded, I felt the final piece of my old life fall away. I was no longer the woman from the viral video. I was no longer Marcus Chen's victim or destroyer. I was simply Diana, building a future based on wisdom earned, strength discovered, and love freely chosen. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Congratulations on your wedding. I saw the photos your friend posted. You look happy. Really happy. I'm glad. You deserve it. Marcus. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. His apologies, his remorse, his observation of my happiness, none of it mattered anymore. He was my past. A painful chapter that had taught me valuable lessons but held no power over my present. I turned off my phone and returned to my reception, where David was waiting with champagne, and that smile that made me feel safe and seen and valued. Where my friends were celebrating not just my marriage but my survival and transformation. Where my future was bright with possibility instead of shadowed by deception. The viral proposal had made me famous for a moment. But the life I built afterward, the woman I became through surviving and thriving, that was the real story. And it was a story I was proud to own. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.